I started working in HIV back in 1985, doing HIV counseling and testing because I was worried about what was happening in the gay community. When you told somebody they were HIV positive, there was nothing that they could really do. It was a scary time.
There was an awful lot of panic around HIV. My father worked in Greenwich Village at St. Vincent's Hospital, which was ground zero for most of the new infections that were taking place. Every time that I visited my father, you would see many people who were incredibly sick. I was just coming out. I knew that I wanted to do something, and I had a lot of friends who were getting sick.
I had a partner who was HIV positive, who developed AIDS before effective treatments were available, and he passed away when he was 29. Shortly after that, I was diagnosed with HIV myself, and I've been living with HIV for almost 20 years now. It's a very different world now than it was then, but we're still seeing too many HIV infections among gay and bisexual men.
I don't think that the gay community really understands the degree to which we continue to be impacted by HIV today.
Gay men have been a part of this epidemic since the beginning. There are now 1.1 million people living with HIV in the United States. More than half of those are gay or bisexual men.
Gay men overall are 40 times more likely to get HIV compared to the general population.
In part because there are so many people living with HIV in our community.
In a study of major U.S. cities, they found that 1 in 5 gay men were HIV positive.
And 1 out of every 3 of those doesn't know that he has the virus. So that means that everyone who is gay or bisexual man in those cities is likely to know somebody with HIV and likely to date somebody with HIV. The presence of HIV in our community makes it a part of everybody's life.
When you take a look at some of the race-specific differences, we're dealing with an incredible crisis among Black gay men, where HIV really has become a rite of passage for many of these men into adulthood. There are about 1 in 6 Latino gay men who were HIV positive, and for Black gay men, unfortunately, it was 1 in 3 who are HIV positive. The really frustrating thing is that people take a look at these infection rates among Black gay men and say that Black gay men are not being responsible for their own health. And what you find is that Black gay men are more likely to get tested for HIV. They engage in less unprotected sex compared to white gay men, and engage in less drug use overall. However, the reason that we're seeing a greater number of new infections is because simply there's so many Black gay men who are living with HIV in the United States. And of those Black gay men who are living with HIV, there's a higher proportion who don't know that they're HIV positive.
People have this myth in their minds that HIV isn't the problem that it used to be.
People just believe that it's no longer there. The only population where the number of new infections are actually increasing are among gay and bisexual men. And when you look deeper into those numbers, you find that that increase was driven by young gay men between the ages of 13 and 24, where there was a 22% increase in new infections.
It shouldn't have to be that HIV is a rite of passage for young gay men.
Quite frankly, HIV stigma hasn't changed that much in the United States from the very beginning of the epidemic until now. It can actually influence the degree to which somebody takes medications to prolong their life. It's something that's pervasive.
I think silence is one of our worst enemies. It feeds into a false sense of security that some people have, that if they don't talk about HIV, if they don't think about it, then it's not going to be a part of their lives. I still see people in the gay community that have misperceptions and unbased fears about this virus.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel, though. HIV-positive men who beforehand would not have considered dating an HIV-negative man now know that HIV shouldn't be a factor in their decisions for dating. With pre-exposure prophylaxis, with treatment as prevention, we know that it's a lot harder for people who are positive and on treatment to transmit HIV, and for those people who are negative and taking pre-exposure prophylaxis, a lot harder for them to acquire HIV.
PrEP helps those who are negative stay negative. When taken every day, it can reduce the risk of getting HIV by more than 90%. One of the things we've learned in the last few years is how important good HIV medical care is, not only for the health of people living with HIV, but for preventing new infections.
Someone who's HIV positive, and if they're on treatment and if they're virally suppressed, they're 96% less likely to transmit HIV to their partner.
As a community, gay people have been able to accomplish so much. We're seeing such incredible advances in terms of marriage equality. I think we need to recapture and channel some of that energy against HIV in our community today.
Thankfully, the United States society has been changing. There's a lot more openness towards gays and lesbians now, and we're hoping that that could translate into more openness around the fact that HIV is still affecting gay and bisexual men disproportionately.
Back in the mid-1980s, when the community came together, HIV testing and effective interventions first became available, we saw a dramatic drop in new HIV infections among gay and bisexual men. The community can make that happen again.
We have to reclaim some of that incredible work, to take up the mantle again and to really reduce together the number of infections that are taking place.
All of us play a role. One of the most important things that people can do is to break the silence, to talk about HIV, to not make this be a hidden issue.
It gave me a lot of hope to see that there's a whole cadre of leadership that's coming up that can replace many of us older folks who've been a part of the fight for quite some time. It gave me a lot of hope for the future, quite frankly.
I'm hopeful that we can see an end to HIV in my lifetime. If we bring our skills, our talents, and our energies together, we can end this epidemic in the United States.